Okay, I'm live. Time to do some send outs to the peeps. Hope everyone's doing good today. Still having issues with monetization on my channel. Try to get that figured out soon. Let's see if I can do anything here now, actually, once that it's live, perhaps. Let's try it maybe a little bit after the fact, see if that changes things. Let us try this. Let's see. No, cannot. Definitely can't do it while I'm live. So I guess I am still going to have to wait till it's over. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Anyways, it is what it is. For now, let's see if anybody has joined in. We got a few peeps already in the chat this morning. All right, let's take a gander here. A gander. What's going on, Ben White? How you doing? Hello, my friend. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Richard, Mr. G. Rich? What's happening? And we got Ann and Steve G. What's up? How you doing? Good times. Hey, always having the good times. What a great handle. Good times. Gotta like it. Hi, guys. What's going on? Like I say, if you look at the name, oh, wait, I don't have the old banner up. There we go. Gotta throw the banner up. Where is that? Did I not create it? Perhaps I did not create it. Well, let me fix that then, shall we? I thought I already did it, though. It's all good, though. Won't take but a second. Won't take but a minute. Create it. There we go. Yeah, I thought for sure. Maybe I just didn't save it. It's probably what it is. How are we at now? Wait a minute. Maybe I'm... Yeah, there we go. There we go. Now we got it. Now we got it. Now we're cooking. Hey, what's going on, the Wizard Online? Ciao. Ciao, Bella. Tommy Gun, what's going on? Oh, Tommy Gun. It looks like Tommy Gun became a member as well. Right on, Tommy Gun. Thank you very much for choosing to be a member of the Canadian Libertarian YouTube channel. Let me just go to the channel and take a look-see and see what level you chose. Because at the very least, you get a special shout-out, which is, like I say, really appreciative for all you folks that have chose to be members of the channel. Kind of gets me right here, folks. Gets me right here. No, really, though, I do appreciate it. Seriously. What's going on here now? Loading. Been having issues. Hopefully, I don't have no further trouble with my internet today, but man, have I ever been having issues. The Gab page, for some reason, I can't get that to load since yesterday. And I uploaded, I haven't been uploading to BitChute, as I informed some of you folks before. I haven't been doing much in terms of uploads on my BitChute channel, because the last couple of times I tried, for some reason they would load, but then, and it takes hours because of my crappy internet speed and the way BitChute takes longer anyways, but then it won't actually process and publish. So it just sits there in limbo where nobody can watch it, but I had to go through the entire timeline of waiting for it to be uploaded. And the one that I uploaded to my YouTube channel regarding YouTube censorship, I wanted to make sure that there was an alternative source for people to get their hands on, right? And so I wanted to upload YouTube, or BitChute, which is what I did yesterday. I started it yesterday, went all day. Like I say, it seemed to have uploaded entirely to the site, put the cover photo on it. But to this day, well, I mean, even now, 24 hours later, it's still not been processed and published. So you can't even watch it yet. So I don't know what the hell's going on, but it seems like the places where I need as my alternative social media platforms So that I do have that redundancy is being hampered in some way. And I don't know, like I say, I don't know what the hell the reason behind it is, but I have been having issues with stuff like that. Oh, and thanks, G. Rich, for sending me that video from the Quarterling once again. I watched that, and it seems like everything's okay, because the only thing I was concerned is like, geez, did I reply? A lot of times, even if I recognize it may or may not be a bot, I'll reply with something as simple as like, thanks, right? I don't usually click on their channel or anything, but I would have probably replied, or most likely at least one time. But since the updated video that you shared, basically the guy mentioned that, no, you don't have much to worry about from that. So if that's the case, yay, good for me. Now, what was I doing here again? Totally get to, oh yeah, see, right on. Seeing what membership level. So I got to go into the old studio here. See what membership level. What? Something's gone wrong again. Why? Why is that? Okay, let's go down here. There we go. There we go. Okay, I'm seeing something. Membership. See all. Edit. No, I don't want to edit. Okay, this is really odd, folks. It's giving me my offer and to edit, but I'm not looking to edit. I just want to see. Huh. It says your newest members, see all, but there's no clickable link. Well, how am I supposed to see it if you don't give me the actual portion to click on? How else could I do it? Okay, let's try one more thing here. Wonder if I just go to the channel without going in to the actual studio portion and see if I can just see it listed. Sign in? Okay, now this is really weird. Let me just check on my stream. Is my stream still working here, folks? You might be watching something happening in real time here. I don't know. Oh, I see Good Times is a new member too, but I've seen somehow seems like it's asking me to sign into my own goddamn account, which I'm not fucking going to do that right now. I find that very, very, very odd. Let's try this one more time. Okay. Okay, that was fucking weird. Sorry for the language. Now I'm going to have to add that I used profanity when I go to monetize the channel. Okay, well, at least this came back. So let me go to the membership. That was odd. That was very odd. Now, when I just go to the membership, it just tells you what the levels of membership. Anyway, so sorry about that for those of you who have chosen to become a member today. I'll have to acknowledge you both. Well, I'll do it right now in terms of the acknowledgement because I can see it, but just in terms of level, I'm not for some reason today being able to see that. So I'll have to do that after the fact. But anyways, thank you, Tommy Gunn, because I obviously see that you have chosen to be a member. And then I see Good Times as well. Thank you very much. Good Times to you as well. And I appreciate that. And a special shout out to you both. And to you in particular, Good Times, for choosing to become a member. Once again, I really appreciate all you folks that are helping me out in this way. It means a lot to me. It really does. But like I say, I'll find out after this stream is over when I get this all sorted out what membership level you chose, and then I'll cover that in the next stream. But anyways, as I was saying, or the heading of this stream is a lot of you folks, or at least some of you folks, were asking about libertarian-oriented resources and materials to get you up to speed. And I thought, what better way than to use? I remember early on, years ago, actually, there was a page, and it took me a while to remember what it was, but it was libertarianism.org, and they had a list. It's basically 4 pages. I'll share that actually with you folks here. Let me throw that up there right now. But anyways, I just want to actually let me say hi to everyone before I get into the whole resources here. Good morning, Jake Fillmore, another member of the channel. Thank you very much as well. Yeah, I know lots of greenies in here today, right? Ooh, wait a minute. The Russians are coming. No, just kidding. But yeah, there's lots of members in this chat today. Hey, what's going on, Leo? Nice to see you in the chat as well. Leo, thanks for joining us there, buddy. Let me see what we got here. Glad to see you're a new member too. Right on. Yep. Awesome. Hello, Howard G. Nice to see Howard G in the chat. Oh, okay. Thanks, Tommy Gunn. So yeah, so you get a special shout out, Tommy Gunn. Like I say, I really appreciate that. Any little bit, every little bit helps tremendously. And like I say, I'm in awe actually of the kind of support that I've been garnering in the last at least couple weeks. And like I say, you're making me feel really good about what I'm doing here, folks. Obviously some of you realize that earlier on or a while ago, I was feeling a little bit down, a little bit overwhelmed and underappreciated, but that's definitely been changed in recent times. Thanks to you folks. How Jake Fillmore? Oh, red. Oh, is it buffering, Red Rum? Yeah, sorry about that. I know it's my crappy internet connection, but I don't know. I don't know what to do about that, folks. Uh-oh. You're still live? Yep. Let me check. Yep. Oh, you mean live, not alive. Yeah. Right on. Okay, what do we got here? Is it still working, folks? I'm going to open up YouTube again for myself and go right to my stream and just see what it looks like on my end here. Oh, there it is right there. There it is right there. There she be. Okay, so far right now, but it might just be because of me looking at it right now. But right now it looks okay, so let's kind of go with that. It's okay right now. So let's get through this. I got about 2 minutes. No, I'm just kidding. So like I say, back to the resource material. I'm going to share this with you folks here. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Okay. You'll share screen. Because like I say, this was a resource material that I used very early on, and there's lots of great material. There's lots more than this, and I'll probably do this in like a kind of like a series. Maybe I'll add series after this so that I'll know to do this as a series, because there's tons more resources and material. But at least this is a kind of a one site or a one stop shop here, Libertarianism, which gives you, as you see, well, this is the first page. Let's make sure you can see that on your end. Yeah, okay. So as you can see on this first page here, and this was originally produced back in November 3rd, 2011, and it's 4 pages. And the first page, as you see, well, it says this is part of a series. So this first page of the series is called Introducing Libertarianism, a Reading List. And like I say, this was Aaron Ross Powell that had created this back in June 2011. Shout out to Aaron Ross, and thanks for doing this, because like I say, it's been great, not just for me, but many others as well. And hopefully it will be for some of you folks in the stream as well. So the 8 books on this list offer a thorough but accessible introduction to libertarianism. Libertarianism, its theory, its practice, is an awfully big topic. This reading list gives you a place to start, a combination of newcomers and established classics. These books offer accessible introductions to a variety of libertarian thought, from philosophy to history to economics. So start here. So this one is called The Libertarian Mind by David Bowes. Bowes' Libertarian Mind is a quick and easy read, but it's also a remarkably thorough introduction to libertarianism. It covers the historical roots of libertarianism and the basics of libertarian political philosophy and economic thinking. Bowes then applies these ideas to major policy areas, showing how free association and free markets, not government coercion and bureaucracy, can solve our most pressing social issues. So yeah, that's definitely a great place to start. I would agree. And then, of course, further reading, The Law by Frederick Bastiat. Great, an excellent. I'll tell you, this is going to be one you're going to want to keep. And the beautiful thing is, not only can you obviously get these things in actual real book form, paperback or hardcover and all such, but you can get these things freely. A lot of these are actually freely available online. If you just search the name, and then after you type your name, let's say The Law, and then the name, and then just put PDF, and then free. If you type that in, you'll see you'll get resource material or resources, instant access to the resources where you can actually load that to, your tablet or your laptop or your desktop or even your smartphone, and then you can read it on the fly or on the go and not have to worry about it getting wet or the dog eating it or anything like that. So anyways, and then you have like redundancy if you want to buy the paper edition of it as well. Anyways, so everything this 19th century Frenchman wrote is worth reading, and The Law is a great place to start. Bastiat's knack of tackling head on with great wit and clarity the fundamental errors and hidden interests behind much economic and political thinking. With the law published in 1850, his target is legal plunder or state-authorized confiscation of property. Taxation is theft, right? Hashtag taxation is theft. The law exists to protect our basic rights, Bastia argues. When it instead becomes a means of coerced redistribution, the law has been used to destroy its own objective. It has been applied to annihilating the justice that it was supposed to maintain, to limiting and destroying rights, which its real purpose was to respect. The law has placed the collective force at the disposal of the unscrupulous who wish, without risk, to exploit the person, liberty, and property of others. So, like I say, an excellent resource as well for anyone that wants to get up to speed in terms of libertarian thought or philosophy. So number 3 here. Number 3, The Machinery of Freedom, Guide to a Radical Capitalism by David Friedman. Now, I'm not 100% sure if I don't believe I have actually fully read this one, so maybe I'll have to get a little bit up to speed on this particular one myself. Anyways, libertarianism represents a spectrum of political philosophies, all sharing a general presumption of liberty. The philosophies vary in how much of a role they grant the state. Classical liberals, for instance, allow government to tax for the provision of many services, including education and social safety nets. Minarchists see government's only legitimate role as providing rights protection in the form of police, courts, and national defense. At the extreme are the anarcho-capitalists. Yeah, the ones that actually follow the logic and the principles all the way to consistency. That's what that means. But yeah, it's extreme to be consistent, right? Which would abolish the state altogether and replace it with purely private and voluntary provisions of service, including for the law itself. David Friedman's The Machinery of Freedom offers an introduction to anarcho-capitalism, arguing for a consequentialist perspective that the state is both unnecessary for achieving a desirable society, and that it in fact makes the world worse through its actions. The questions Friedman raises and the analysis he offers will benefit any student of liberty. So, sounds quite intriguing, right? Anyways, before I continue on to the next one, let's see what you folks are saying in the chat so far here. Okay. And yeah, thanks again. I already mentioned it, but thanks again there, Richard, for G. Rich, for helping me out with that. Well, not just making sure I got the coin for StreamYards, but for sharing that resource material in regards to the comment. Can we be friends? Want to be friends? Yeah, because that's, and hopefully those in YouTube are going to get to the bottom of that, because the mere thought. For me, the mere thought, I was talking about this with my wife and actually my son, and just the mere thought of the 1,100 and some videos on my channel. I mean, yeah, you could get them back, but the amount of work and effort that it would go into if somebody, gained access to the site and had the ability to, well, that's the thing. I was using Streamlabs earlier on, but now that I'm using StreamYards, I only had one third-party application because I did that security checkup, and I only had one third-party application that was using that had the kind of permissions that would be able to do what this bot was attempted to do, and I've removed it. I've gone in subsequently, because now that I have StreamYards, there's no reason for me to use Streamlabs. But when you sign up for Streamlabs, and Leo would probably recognize this himself, and once again, not saying that that's just by having Streamlabs, you're automatically vulnerable. I think you're probably still safe for the most part. It's just for me, I like to be a little bit overly safe and secured, because like I say, I've worked hard for 6-7 years now to build this channel to what it is. And I definitely want to make sure I'm protecting as best I can. But StreamYards had this, Streamlabs, when you sign up to it, gives it permission to like, share, delete. Like, you can do everything that you can do almost with your channel. And I was like, I don't even like giving those kind of permissions, which is why even my smartphone has the most basic Android operating system with very minimal in terms of bloatware or third-party apps. And I like it that way, right? And I've got all permissions turned off. Like I said, I like to have control over my devices. I don't even like the concept of someone else or third parties having so much control over my own devices, which is why I'm usually proactive. Not just on my smartphone devices, but even on my laptop or desktops or any device I use. I'm very proactive, and you should be too, in making sure that you have as much control over anything that's provided, or their information, or anything you've got stored on your devices. Because some of these third-party apps, the permissions they ask, yeah, it's just no thanks. No thanks. CL is the only alternative. Libcon duality must go with both parties signing to sustainable development and global compact. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Although, well, libertarianism is the future. That's for sure, right? Libertarians, I mean, that's it, all a libertarian is really at the end of the day is people, like I say, and we've heard me say it so many times, it's not that difficult. Some people that, don't like people to have their freedoms, they try to make it sound really difficult, or they try to paint or stereotype libertarians as these bad people. Now, I'll admit, because we're all individuals, I'll even admit myself, I come across libertarians, people that identify as libertarians all the time. And that's the beautiful thing about freedom of association, right? We don't have to, just because we agree with each other fundamentally on some principles, doesn't mean I want to be friend with everyone that identifies as a libertarian. Because, right, I've heard libertarians, they like to use libertarianism as just an excuse to not give a fuck or a damn about anything, or to help anyone, or to be those greedy, selfish pieces of shit that, that a lot of us are referenced or stereotyped in such a manner, right? But one thing about libertarians that you can at least acknowledge is the underlying, the individuals are all individuals, but the underlying premises, the principles that are espoused in the philosophy of libertarianism, that is what it is. I mean, if you were going to set up, whether it's even your household or society at large, if you're going to structure any environment where you want people to be treated fairly, right, and given their proper freedoms and respected as sovereign individuals, self-ownership, property rights, and non-aggression principle, the very core basis or tenets of libertarianism is what most of us require or demand in our own lives. So let's just extrapolate and pulling that out to the societal level. It's, live and let live, and treat people how you would want to be treated yourself. Pretty simple concepts in reality, which tells you that people that rail against them or try to deride libertarianism, they're basically admitting, but they won't say it as such, but they're basically admitting that they like to use force, preemptive force, violence, coercion, or theft as their means to an end, which puts them on the wrong side of morality or ethics as far as I'm concerned. Okay. I pay for everything I eat and work very hard for my money. Hence, everything I eat tastes. Right on. Yeah, right on. Exactly. That's so true, though, right? It gives you a genuine, fundamental understanding of the importance. Even when I think something as simple as the pencil, I'll tell you. Let me just give you a quick little story there, and I'll actually, if you want to check it out, folks. Actually, let me see if I can find it, and I'll share it in the link. It's just a short little video, and they've updated it, the newest version. Let me see if I can find the newest version. Yeah, I think that's it right there. Yeah, I'm quite sure. More about iPencil. Darn, there's a whole bunch of them here, though. Just want to make sure this is the right one. Yeah, I'll place a link to this. Open in Italy. But it's called iPencil. But it really gives you appreciation of what it takes to build even something as simple as a pencil. And it gives you a fundamental understanding of the kind of effort, coordinated effort, right, that goes into something as simple as a pencil. And then when you think about something as complex as, let's say, a computer or an automobile or some of that big, giant, heavy-duty equipment and machinery, just think of how much work and effort, the blood, sweat, and toil from thousands of people that go into these things, and to think, and that, to me, that's what gives me a genuine amount of appreciation. Because if you've done any hard work yourself, what an honest day's work is like, and what kind of fulfillment that brings to you, especially once you've seen something come to fruition as a consequence of that. And when I hear people talk about these things like vehicles and things, how they're so disposable, and treat them as basically just go get a new one. It's, to me, I can't think that way, which is why I still drive a vehicle. My vehicle is 16 years old, I think now, but of course it's a nice vehicle. I made sure I bought a good one at the time, right? But I just have so much appreciation for the fact that how much work went into that, and I treat it with that kind of respect, knowing that, right? Whereas people that don't, maybe come from a wealthy family and they've never had to work hard for it themselves, or, you know, function off the forced wealth and income redistributive model where they've never had to put in a real honest, hard day's work to achieve or attain any of the things that they've garnered. Yeah, they show a severe lack of appreciation for that. But anyways, like I say, folks, if you check this video out, 6 minutes long, but I think it does at least give people a good grasp or understanding of just how much work and effort goes into every little thing. Well, from the littlest thing all the way up to the biggest things that we all use these days or take advantage of. And like I say, I enjoyed it anyway, so maybe you folks will as well. So there it is. I shared it in, actually, let me put that even in. So I'll save it after I get off the stream and add it in that as well. But yeah, it's called I Pencil the Movie. Anyways, back to where was I? Where was I? Get a little sidetrack there. Okay, come on. There we go. But yeah, I get what you're saying there, G Rich. Bylaw says no chickens, but I'm a rebel. No chickens. Oh. Okay. There we go. Yeah, if any of you get the comment, want to be friends on any of your videos, do not click on a reply or go to the channel. Well, I would say, yeah, and report it too. That's what I did too as well. I reported it. Although that's the thing, when you report it, that was the first time I've ever actually reported on anything. And I didn't notice this, but you're only given 5 options when you go to report on something. You're given 5 options, like pre-selective, and you can't pick an like other and say, oh, it's this instead. Because the 5 options that I was given is like, well, no, it's not considered just spam, right? And no, it's not someone promoting violence, or it was none of the 5 choices. So it's like, well, I don't know, what do I pick? So I just went with the spam thing. But I don't know, maybe they don't pay much attention to things that are just spam, right? I don't know. They'd probably pay attention to it more if you could type in it looks like it might be a hack that's affecting, you know, YouTube's actual system and taking control over, you know, maybe up to thousands of accounts. But I wasn't given that option, unfortunately. Yeah, it's been on mine. This comment has definitely been on mine. And it doesn't, I don't see it anymore, but there was another one that used to, I remember seeing, my wife pointed out to me, I think it was the first one that pointed out to me, one called Tom. That one called Tom. Yeah, that one used to show up on my streams or my videos as well. Okay, anyway, so yeah, let's get back to, I was just reading you folks. Okay, so free to choose a personal statement. Okay, yeah, so this one is number 4. Number 4, free to choose a personal statement by Milton Friedman and Rose Friedman. This was one actually, I believe, I believe I watched a video on it. So I believe you can actually find, yeah, I believe it was a video that I seen this, but you'll definitely be able, like I say, you'll be able to find the resources and all this material by just clicking on it and doing a Google search. Or maybe even after I get a few minutes, I'll try to find the actual links to these and add them into the description of this video as well. Okay, so published as the companion volume to the 10-hour documentary. Yeah, so it was 10 hours. Yeah, so you're going to want to do that in chunks. You think I can talk a lot? Although I think I could go 10 hours. Matter of fact, if someone wants to dare me and pay me to do it, I show that I can. No, just joking. But I really think I could. I could go 10 hours. I think I could. I really think I could. Give me a couple more glasses of something to keep the whistle wet, and I'm pretty good. I think I could handle it. But anyways, a 10-hour documentary. So, you know, there's a lot of information contained in that for sure. Of the same name, Free to Choose, was one of the best-selling books of 1980. Here, Nobel laureate Milton Friedman and his wife Rose gave a spirited and readable critique of the interventionist state, focusing on concrete examples and explanations. Free to Choose is an excellent introduction to the productive power unleashed by freedom, and also a primer of the economic analysis of public policy. The Friedmans examine the workings of markets, look at how well-meaning policies like the minimum wage hurt the poor, and explain the causes of the Great Depression. Covering much of the same ground as the documentary series, Though in more depth, Free to Choose is a perfect introduction not only to the thought of Milton Friedman, one of the 20th century's foremost champions of liberty, but also to the underappreciated and often misunderstood benefits of laissez-faire, right? So another one, like I say, excellent. And like I say, if you don't have the time to sit down and read the book, then like I say, throw that documentary on there if you want. And then with a documentary, even if you don't watch the visual cues, at least you can hear the audio of that and kind of take away a lot of that information. And because we can, tend to do that stuff, maybe have it on your smartphone, you can do that while you're doing some other remedial or meaningless task that's kind of more repetitive so that you can actually pay attention, right? But yeah, that would definitely be another great resource or material. Resource or material, I should say. And then number 5 here is Eat the Rich, a treatise of economics by P.J. O'Rourke, another excellent source, proving that economics need not be a dry textbook affair. P.J. O'Rourke's Eat the Rich sets out to answer the critical question: why do some places prosper and thrive while others just suck? O'Rourke, one of America's premier humorists, travels the world visiting Wall Street, Albania, Sweden, Cuba, Russia, Tanzania, Hong Kong, and Shanghai, and uses experience to untangle the relationship between markets, political institutions, and culture. While Eat the Rich is a breezy and hilarious read, it is far from facile. O'Rourke's explorations and the insights he draws from them make the book live up to its subtitle, A Treatise on Economics. If you've never taken Econ 101 and the thought of supply and demand curves makes you want to nod off, Eat the Rich is a perfect book. Right on. Excellent. Well, that's the thing. It does help, obviously, tremendously, especially based on your personality, that if you are going to be informed or educated, it's nice to be somewhat entertained, right, while that's taking place, because it makes it a much more pleasing experience, right? And of course, Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, what an excellent novel. That's a long one, though, folks. That's a lot of words you're going to read. But yeah, if you put in the effort to read this book, no doubt in my mind that you will definitely walk away from it much more knowledgeable and understand in regards to the philosophy of objectivism, or what freedom even entails as well, because especially in terms of the economic side of things, because the characters, not just within the book, but they've actually done iterations and they've done a movie. Actually, so if you don't even want to read the book, you could also watch the movie as well and get that kind of information from the actual big screen. But it's definitely an excellent source of material for those of you who want to understand. And because Ayn Rand grew up in, was it St. Petersburg, Russia, and her father basically had his business taken away by the communist regime, and she was, Ayn Rand was Jewish, by the way. So these were people that had actual real world experience with this, and no doubt was part of the reasons or the inspiration behind, that novel in the first place. A perennial bestseller since its publication in 1957. And actually, if I remember correctly, for a substantial portion or a particular timeline, I believe Atlas Shrugged was such a great seller. I think there were certain points in particular decades in the past where actually there was only one book that was outselling Atlas Shrugged, and I think it was the Bible. I think only one book had ever sold as many copies in a particular time frame or timeline, and I believe it was it was the Bible. So obviously, a big, huge, best-selling book, and it was that for a reason, because it's very, very, very keen and a lot of observations and big stories, meta narratives that talk and discuss the importance of liberty and having some genuine self-esteem and the audacity to stand for freedom, right? Because that's the other thing, is understanding liberty is one thing, but you actually have to have the resolve and the courage to stand for it as well. Otherwise, it's just a concept in your mind, right? Anyway, so Ayn Rand's mammoth novel, Atlas Shrugged, has probably turned more people onto libertarianism than any other book. Atlas Shrugged explores a dystopian future where the government has enthusiastically embraced collectivism in the name of fairness and equality, and leading innovators, industrialists, and artists have been disappearing. So basically, like it's basically a future-telling kind of a book discussing basically what's taking place today. Well, no, it's because that's the thing. History does tend to repeat itself, folks. So you definitely see a lot of similarities of the past that you'll see that's happening today. The book served as Rand's platform for promoting objectivism, her comprehensive philosophy of traditional selfishness. While Rand's philosophy remains deeply divisive to this day, it is impossible to deny the enormous impact she's had on promoting the benefits of free markets and dynamic capitalism. And I definitely agree. And once again, when it comes to Ayn Rand, when I first heard about this lady, and like I've said in the past, I've got some people that I look up to tremendously, men and men as well. But when it comes to the females among us, two of the most important people in my life is my wife, and was my grandmother on my mother's side, who has recently passed, who had played such a key and pivotal role and effect on who I am today. And I'll tell you, as far as if there was a third person I would have to add into that list behind my wife and my grandmother, as much as I never met the woman personally, right? But as far as a woman that has a tremendous amount of influence over my mind and the way I think about things, and have clarified some of the constructs or the premises that she put forth in the book, or what her philosophy of objectivism entails. Yeah, Ayn Rand is she's a stone cold genius, and someone I definitely look up to. And when I heard about this woman and started trying to learn everything about her, there's a tremendous amount of resource and material out there. Just type in Ayn Rand, and even on YouTube alone, look at some of those amazing interviews that she's had on. Johnny Carson, I think, interviewed her, was it once or twice? Donahue. I mean, she had interviews going all the way back. I think the first one was in like 1959 or so. But if you listen to this woman and they grill her, right? They try to dig down, try to stumble, make her stumble, to trip her up. But like I say, she's such a stone cold genius and understands her philosophy so well. She bangs out the answers so clear and concise. It's just an amazing spectacle to see someone with that kind of brain power, and not just the ability to use her brain, but on the fly to think so quickly, and offer clear and concise explanations for her stance or her principles on any subject or topic matter that's ever been or topic or subject matter that's ever put forth presenters. Like I say, just amazing. I wish to get to that point someday where I'm as competent as that lady was. Hopefully, if I keep working, I will. Okay, and then what are we at? Number 6 here, I believe we're at there now. The Rational Optimist, How Prosperity Evolves by Matt Ridley. The newest book on this list, Matt Ridley's The Rational Optimist, plays the grand sweep of human history and prehistory to argue for the incredible significance of free trade and against those who would seek to restrict it. In so doing, Ridley offers what amounts to a book-length answer to the question, why are people rich? Most humans who have ever lived did so in unimaginable poverty. It was only recently that standards of living began their remarkable and accelerating climb. What happened? Free exchange. Just as sex made biological evolution cumulative, Ridley writes, so exchange made cultural evolution cumulative and intelligence collective, and that there is therefore an inexorable tide in the affairs of men and women, discernible beneath the chaos of their actions. And what was it? Actually, what did they say? This was 8, wasn't it? Yeah, 8. So I guess I miscounted anyway. So what was the last one? Okay, so number 8, Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell. Now, Thomas Sowell is someone that has definitely got a lot of information out there. And he's actually still out there putting information out today, from what I understand. Or maybe I could be incorrect in that assumption, actually. But anyways, here. So Basic Economics, A Common Sense Guide to the Economy by Thomas Sowell. While the libertarian vision is much more than just free markets, economic thinking greatly informs the libertarian approach to public policy. When you're ready to move beyond the brief introduction provided by P.J. O'Rourke's Eat the Rich, Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics is the ideal place to turn. Sowell presents the fundamentals of economic reasoning in clear, jargon-free prose. He addresses everything from incentives and the role of prices to international trade, monetary policy, and the banking system. Sowell shows how so many government programs enacted with the best of intentions run afoul of simple economic truths and, as a result, often do far more harm than good. And isn't that the truth? Anyways, I'm getting back into the stream here, see who else has joined up so far. Well, yeah, we got a few more folks in the stream. Okay. There we go. I see where we're at there now. Yeah. Motorcycles have more deaths than firearms. So, in the view of public safety, any motorcycle over 75 cc's are now prohibited. That's the thing. When you start down this ridiculous road to pretend that things can be a potential threat, or the what if, I've said this before, is like, and I can't stand the what ifers, the people that are just, that's all they ever use as the pretense is fear. Fear controls and dominates, right? And when you allow fear to control and dominate you, well, that's where you do turn and pivot towards that what if. And once you start down that road, what if, yes, you can basically look out there and perceive almost everything as a potential threat, as a potential danger. And for those people, like, I wouldn't even want to live inside their goddamn minds. I can't imagine what kind of hellscape it is living in that mind that's basically scared of everything, right? Oh, by the way, speaking of that, these fanatics, these lockdown fanatics, I've got another video that I've uploaded, and it should be released tomorrow morning. But yeah, some of these fanatics that love the lockdown because they're scared of their own shadow, and basically what it is they're projecting their own fears and scared because they don't, and because they're having to lock themselves down because they're scared of everything. Well, that's the thing with these people. They're so petty that they don't want to see anyone else out there enjoying themselves. And when they see someone else out there enjoying themselves or not being scared or fearful of the what's taking place out there, I don't want to use the word because that's not what this stream is about, and I don't want to have to use that as a thing anyways. But if there's any potential hazard out there, they're so scared of it, even if no matter how low the potential, the possibility of them being severely harmed or hurt in any way, yeah, you go ahead and do your thing. But the fact that that's misery loves company, right? And apparently even those who are fearful or cowards want everyone else to be the same way. And if they see that there are people who aren't fearful or cowardly, I guess it pisses them off so much that they feel necessary or some need to call up them snitch lines and report or rat out on them. And yeah, like I say, that these people are sickening people, and they do exist among us. That's for sure. Obviously a motorcycle, a car, accidents happen every day too. There's lots of things, right? If you sat down and just figured out, like I say, every activity, gardening, I would imagine people have been harmed gardening in their backyard, right? Are we going to stop doing that too? Come on, that's the thing. We have to accept as human beings that there are potential threats and dangers out there. That's the insanity. Do your best to protect yourself as much as you can, but you don't deny people's ability to live, right? That's the thing. I want to be able to live my life, properly live it, not just go through the motions of being alive. Oh, sorry, you guys were talking back. Yeah, all knives to be banned, even for chefs. They don't need those big sharp knives. Yeah, exactly, right? That's the thing. You could ban everything and they'll still figure it out. As if banning things stop people from using them anyways, right? When does that ever happen? Pointing out the emperor has no clothes is a life-ending offense. Nope, no tyranny here. It can be. Canada, the Banana Republic, run by a sock puppet and his clown posse. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Still not a fan of Ayn Rand. What is it about her that you don't like? I'm always curious because when I hear people, but to me, it's like, who cares about, even if you don't like the lady, like even if you don't like her as a person, what about her philosophy? I guess that would be my question, Stan, is what about her philosophy that is it that you don't like? Because that I get that. I've heard, and there are some people, even libertarians, that say they hate Ayn Rand or they can't stand her. I've yet to hear a good explanation. Like, I understand that people just, like, even myself, there's lots of people that just their personality, who they are, there's just something about them that rubs me the wrong way. But that's just a personal subjective thing. But at the end of the day, when I'm talking about Ayn Rand, it's who cares if you like her as a person, but it's the philosophy, right? And how we can all use that in our real life. And I think that plays a key role. And the whole thing in terms of self-esteem or rational selfishness, because when people hear the word selfishness, they think, oh, they're just someone that just wants everything for themselves. They're greedy, right? Greedy capitalist. So if you listen to like selfishness or hear that Ayn Rand promotes selfishness, you might think, oh, she's just one of them. But no, if you listen to the way she properly articulates and explains her rational form of selfishness, because I actually completely agree with it. Because to be altruistic for anybody, like having blind altruism towards anyone, to sacrifice yourself for the greater good or anyone, is to what? Put yourself in the slave psychology where you'll just, anybody's allowed to walk over you. Well, to me, it's like, no, I have self-esteem, and the selfishness that comes with having self-esteem is no. People have to, it's what the selfishness is what do you bring to the table for me? Like if I acknowledge and recognize that you are a good person or moral or ethical, then it's what you do. Or if I love you, it's a selfish love, right? Like I don't love you just for the sake of I feel sorry for you or I want to be altruistic. And this is how she explains like even personal love. It's like I don't love the person to be altruistic. I just got love this person because they just would never be loved by anyone if I didn't, right? I'm so selfless because I love this person because what they provide and offer to me. It's a selfish kind of a thing, but not like a mean or any kind of evil selfishness. It's the fact that yes, I do it because of what that person does for me. And obviously, right? You don't love people indiscriminately. I sure as shit don't. I don't just, I love everybody. I mean, no, because I don't love rapists. I don't love pedophiles. I don't love evil people. I don't love Trudeau, right? Or any of these dipshits that want to dictate and control every aspect of my life. So no, I have to be able to be selective and picky. And I have to, for me to love someone, I want to love someone that's deserving of that love, right? So anyways, without even going into that, to me, those are usually when I hear people that say things that are negative towards Ayn Rand, is because of those negative connotations. And yes, obviously selfishness can come with negative connotations, but if you listen to the way she articulates the premises behind her stance in regards to the rational selfishness, then I think you'll be much better understanding of her. And if you haven't, then like I say, I would say at least give the lady the opportunity to explain herself for herself rather than listen to someone else. And then you make that decision all on your own. And if you still don't like her, well, I don't care. It's no sweat on my back, right? No problem there. But anyways, Rand was part of the cabal, like everything, all in moderation. Ayn was a totalitarian, even from a business standpoint. The fact is, even big business needs competition to stay honest. Yeah, she's all about free market. So of course, competition. Totalitarian. I have no idea. I would love, actually, if you would like to, Stan, I would love to hear, but I would have to do it in video form. So like join me in the stream sometime. But if you would like to explain to me, oligarch lover, she railed against the oligarch stand. I think you've been told some wrong things by some wrong people, or you've been definitely misinterpreting. Same with UKM. Like I say, if any one of you wants to come on and have a chat with me sometime and explain your stance in regard to Ayn Rand, actually, I would love to have that kind of conversation. I think it would be quite engaging. But I think I could prove that a lot of your premises are based on not truth, right? I can almost guarantee that I could prove with clarity that some of the premises that you're suggesting towards Ayn Rand, I can prove that she was nothing of the sorts of the things that you're accusing her of. Totalitarian or like all about defending oligarchs. Nah, the exact opposite. But anyways, I get it. Yeah, she would be considered a minarchist. Yes, that I would agree with you 100%. She left an area of her mind and in her philosophy. Yeah, Rika's right on. Oh, by the way, Rika, awesome. Rika's right on. Yes. What did she still leave a little bit of area there in her mind, for the state, which would obviously allow for that creep, right? Means she still left the back gate a little bit wide open. But if you go by her philosophy, her stance herself when she was hammered down on these questions, she would defend the state in some way. And I get why it was like she came from a communist regime, a country like that was run by a communist regime, and came to America. And I suppose she wasn't, coming there to claim a full on anarchy. Right? So she did leave a minarchist state, a night watchman type of state. But, so I guess technically, could you call Ayn Rand a statist? Technically, yes. But if I had to pick a status on the planet, that I would say that if I want to be a fellow traveler with, because Ayn Rand's at least getting this at least on that path towards liberty, or full anarcho capitalism, Ayn Rand's going to be all the way basically to almost the end stop with me, right? I'll still travel a little bit further down that path, but she's going to walk a long way with me, right? So I'm cool with her, right? There are definitely a lot of status among us. Well, she's no longer, is she? Yeah. Anyways, as far as that goes, I don't know if I'd want to. I don't know if I'd necessarily, like I say, want to use status as a label to describe Ayn Rand. I think I would reserve that for people that are, much further down the intellectual or philosophical level in terms of understanding what government's all about, right? But yeah, right on, Rika. Okay, just going to get to a couple more comments, and then I'll get back into reading some more of these great. Let's see, what are these great? Like our Liberal Party overlord. Not sure what that was about, the Liberal Party overlords. Well, Ayn Rand definitely wouldn't be agreeing with the Liberal Party. Like I say, you really should get caught up to speed. I hope you're, at the very least, I hope you're just not listening to what other people say about her. Anyone with the last name Rand, you should really think twice. What? Not even sure what that one even means, but skipped over my head. Okay. Oh, lame joke. I'm only. Oh, it was a joke? Oh, okay. Sorry. Whatever. Yeah, hey, maybe I just not very good at catching the jokes, right? Oh, the Rand Corporation. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm a little slow this morning myself. Oh, sorry, Stan. Yeah, if you don't joke about the shit, even lame ones, you'll end up there. Sorry. So yeah, apparently my bad, not catching on with the jokes here, folks. Yeah, I have to be prompted with the LOL or like a smiley face. Hey, what's this? I don't know if I've noticed Doug Rock. No, I don't think I've ever noticed you in the stream before. Oh, by the way, folks, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like, and if you haven't already, Doug Rock, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate that as well. And thanks for joining the stream. These pro-lockdown people are not afraid of CV. They're going along with the new 1929 deliberate crash to bankrupt us on purpose. I agree. And like I say, check out my my video that'll be uploaded tomorrow. I think it's coming up. It should be up by 10 a.m. I believe Eastern time. What's it called? Something about lockdown fanatics. Anyways, you'll see it. And hopefully if you're subscribed to my channel, you got the bell notification turned on. Or even if you don't get the notification, just check out my channel tomorrow and you'll see it'll be uploaded anytime after 10 o'clock, I believe, Eastern time. But yeah, it's regarding that. And I'm dealing with an article written by Brandon O'Neill. He's a contributor and the editor for Spike Magazine of the UK. And talking about these lockdown fanatics. These people are just, they're just loving the lockdowns. And basically for the same reason as you're alluding to, Doug. So yeah, check that out. Most people that don't like Ayn, not because of her philosophy, but her Zionist leaning. Yeah, could be. Because yeah, to me, that's the thing. Yeah, good thinking there. Good times. Hit the like, everyone. Only 8 likes so far? Really? It's a bummer. That's a bummer. Jake says it's 15. Anyways. Okay, so let's get back to... Yeah, okay. Going back to the... Oh, look, I haven't even taken that off. Okay, sorry, folks. I'm getting preoccupied here. But yeah, let's get back to... I'll flip the page here and go to the next part of this. So page 2 here, like you say, it's a 4-part series, 4 pages. So page 2 here is Libertarian Theory, a reading list. A selection of books to take readers beyond the basics of libertarianism and into the philosophy and economics that provides its foundation. So, you got your introduction. Now it's time to step it up a whole nother level. Is that Saturday Night Live or something? A whole nother level. If you're already familiar with the basics of libertarian thought and are interested in exploring deeper, the books on this list provide a thorough overview of the rich fundamentals. A mixture of established classics and modern contributions, those books are a bit more demanding than those on the Introducing Libertarianism list. But for the serious student of liberty, these works greatly reward careful study. So, like I say, excellent resource material in here as well. A first step The Libertarian Reader, classic and contemporary writings from Lao Tzu to Milton Friedman by David Bose. The scope of libertarian philosophy can be overwhelming. With countless thinkers stretching back thousands of years, it's difficult to know where to start. David Bose, The Libertarian Reader, is a great source for the major works, including essays and selections from books. Divided thematically and featuring both classics and newer contributions, it's the perfect first step in exploring libertarian theory. By reading The Libertarian Reader, you'll come away with an appreciation of the full reach and complexity of libertarian thoughts, as well as a sense of where to focus future exploration. Further reading, The Structure of Liberty, Justice and the Rule of Law by Randy E. Barnett. In The Structure of Liberty, Randy Barnett tackles the problem of justifying a complete libertarian philosophy, starting with a clear, compelling, and secular account of natural law and natural rights. Barnett moves on to address three significant problems with power, government, and central control: the problem of knowledge, the problem of interest, and the problem of power. Barnett explains how a decentralized markets and polycentric legal orders can best deal with those fundamental limitations of human institutions. So once again, another excellent, and this one too, the Bastiat collection by Frederick Bastiat, another excellent source material. More than 150 years after his death, the works of Frederick Bastiat remain some of the most incisive critiques of protectionism and big government. Probably as well as the most thoughtful and clear articulation of the benefits of free trade. Bastiat possessed a remarkable ability to make economic analysis clear and compelling, and he is unmatched as a popularizer of economic thinking. Highlights include that which is seen and that which is not seen, which features the now famous broken window fallacy and a petition from the manufacturers of candles, a terribly funny satire of protectionism, which has a coalition of lighting manufacturers petitioning the government because they say, we are suffering from the ruinous competition of a rival production of light that he is flooding the domestic market with it at an incredibly low price. And of course, they're speaking of the sun. Yes, I know that this one is great. And it is great. And like I say, it's if you're getting entertained while you're being educated and informed, well, it makes it that much more simpler. And the Bastiat collection would definitely do that for you. So definitely check that out for sure. Simple Rules for a Complex World by Richard A. Epstein. Richard Epstein is one of the most important contemporary consequentialist libertarian thinkers. His scholarship focuses on the intersection of law and economics, and Simple Rules is no exception. The book sets out a powerful argument for reducing the scope of law to a handful of simple rules: autonomy, first possession, and consensual exchange, and defines a simple rule as one that generates more benefits than harm. Thus, streamlined, law will be more efficient and more conducive to a flourishing society. So like I say, a lot of these resource materials, folks, a lot of the questions that you have in your head or you've heard other people ask, like, oh, what do you do under this kind of situation or scenario? A lot of those questions, if you read these books and get up to speed with this kind of information, well, you'll have that kind of those answers readily available in your mind to answer people when they do ask, because there's a tremendous amount of questions people are always asking. Well, how could you do this without government? How could you do this without government? Like I say, the answers are all there. All these questions that I've heard, some really outlandish, like questions that are so far stretched or far removed from what you would actually see, normally in any society, right? Even these like 1 in a gazillion chance of this thing kind of happening, even those answers are mostly, or those questions are answered by people that actually understand philosophical principles regarding liberty. It's because that's all you, once again, questions, all you do is extrapolate on what it is to be a free human being. Freedom is always the answer. It's just a matter of how you articulate what that freedom entails and how it comes to exist and how you defend it or put it into practice. And of course, an old favorite by a lot of people, Capitalism and Freedom by Milton Friedman. Now, I will admit, Milton Friedman, once again, just like Ayn Rand, like she wasn't considered a full-on anarcho-capitalist to remove the pretense of the state entirely. Well, so is Milton Friedman in terms of his economic policy. He's definitely a proponent of free markets, but Milton Friedman himself is a monetarist, so does support, to a degree, having central banks. And to me, a monetarist is kind of skirting that middle line as well, right? Because the central bank is the tenant or the instrument that central planners, authoritarians, or these thieves use to, like I say, to control and dictate our economic decisions, which translates into having a tremendous amount of effect on our social lives too. So as much as I'll even push back against some of the stuff Milton Friedman defended in terms of central bank policies, although he always pointed out in clear and concise language that I would imagine if he was given the choice, he would prefer that there were no such thing as central banks, although once again, he at least admitted that Keynesianism is not the way to go. But Milton Friedman does leave a little bit area in there in his mind for some kind of central planning in terms of monetary system. But I believe what he was just to make sure that the main thing with him as monetarist is to make sure there was a healthy supply of money for the entrepreneurs and the those who want to start up and be capitalists in the market, right? Anyways, Capitalism and Freedom is the book that introduced Milton Friedman to general audiences. In it, Friedman, who would go on to win the Nobel Prize in economics, shows how political freedom depends on economic freedom. He develops this argument through examinations of education, discrimination, the regulation of monopoly, occupational licensing, and poverty. And he shows how free markets and the incentives they unleash can address many of the social concerns governments have failed to solve. The market, right? The market can solve these problems if allowed to. The Constitution of Liberty by F. Frederick Hayek is another excellent source of material. You're definitely going to want to check out Hayek's Road to Serfdom is another one. I imagine that's probably listed in one of these lists as well. But the Constitution of Liberty is another excellent source. The Constitution of Liberty is Hayek's monumental restatement of the principles of classical liberalism. Hayek is arguably the most important libertarian thinker of the 20th century, and the Constitution of Liberty is the most thorough and accessible summary of his thought. Hayek's major contribution is in understanding the way that knowledge operates within a society and how unplanned and emergent behaviors and institutions are better able to draw upon knowledge held by individuals than are bureaucrats and central planners. The Constitution of Liberty sets out his vision for what a free society respecting these principles would look like. So very much aligned with the same kind of thought processes in terms of people like Adam Smith, right? So definitely, like I say, definitely check out The Invisible Hand is basically what I'm referring to, is where, yes, it's the market that helps these transactions take place, not central planners picking and choosing, right? No, it's the free market and how that properly functions. So definitely check out, like I say, The Constitution of Liberty by F.A. Hayek. Then you got John Locke, the man himself, private property, right? When you're talking about private property, John Locke's usually the man that people refer to. The Second Treatise of Civil Government by John Locke, one of history's most important works of political philosophy, John Locke's Second Treatise is a classic and timeless statement of the principles of individual liberty and limited government, one that had a major influence on the founding of the American Republic. By starting with a hypothetical state of nature, Locke develops a system of human rights, including a right to property, and shows how governments are created by men in order to protect those rights. He argues that because governments are so limited, citizens are justified in rebelling when the rulers overstep their bounds, an idea that found clear expression in the Declaration of Independence. So that's the thing. As much as I have a lot of respect for John Locke and what he brought to the table with his Second Treatise of Civil Government, it was the sheer fact that, like I say, to leave, that's the thing. At the time, it seemed like a tremendous step forward. And it was a tremendous advancement to shrink government to the size and scope of what it was when they set up the American Constitution and the American government. It was so tiny in comparison to anything that existed in the Western world that to them is like, yeah, don't worry. We're making sure that no matter what happens, because you have your Second Amendment, you understand freedom, you have, like I say, a lot of these concepts were fresh in the mind of the masses, or so many people at the time. When they set up the government, they thought, yeah, as long as we make sure that the people have the ability and the wherewithal and the understanding regarding liberty to defend themselves against foreign threats or domestic threats, well, they'll be able to keep big government at bay and keep government in check and small how they originally intended, the founding fathers, right? But because they left that back gate open, well, I guess at the time they didn't realize just how expansive that government would be to get to the point where, yeah, not so easy to unwind it, right? Once the gate's been opened and they start invading in your backyard, these authoritarians, it's much, much more difficult to try to get rid of them at that point, which, as far as I'm concerned, don't leave that gate open in the first place. But that's the world that we're functioning today. And like I say, if John Locke was alive today, he'd probably be like, okay, let me rewrite this. No, we can't leave that back gate open anymore. Right? Sorry, statism, we're going to reject it entirely. But at the time, like I say, it was a major advancement and step forward for human societies in comparison and contrast to anything else that was on offer in terms of social cooperation or social cohesion. It was the best example at that time of what it even mean to be live in a place where actual individual freedom and liberty actually existed, right? For most. Okay, so, oh yeah, and of course, this is another one, another classic. This is just like actually the two above this one. This is another important and a classic for anyone that wants to learn about liberty, is On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. The sole end for which mankind are warranted individually or collectively in interfering with the liberty of actions of any of their number is self-protection, John Stuart Mill writes in his classic utilitarian defense of liberalism, On Liberty. This very libertarian argument leads Mills to defend a great many rights against state incursions, including liberty of conscience, freedom of thought and expression, association, freedom to choose one's own path in life, and more. On Liberty is a powerful and beautifully written defense of the core beliefs of libertarianism. And yeah, Anarchy, State, and Utopia by Robert Nozick, another excellent source, folks. Robert Nozick's book, released to widespread critical and popular acclaim in 1974, was almost single-handedly responsible for making libertarianism a force in modern academic philosophy. In Anarchy, State, and Utopia, Nozick shows how a minimal state, one that acts only to protect its citizens from violence and fraud, can arise within a state of nature and without violating any rights. He then goes on to argue that such a minimal state is the only morally legitimate form of government, and that is also the form most conducive to human happiness and a pluralistic conception of the good. Anarchy, State, and Utopia remains a proud place in the canon of political philosophy. So once again, great resource material. And once again, once you've read all this stuff, you yourself will see, oh, okay, I get it, where there was a slight, like say, look, the gate was left open, but boy, they had everything else, like all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. They did a really good job, articulating this. And like I said, even myself, who rejects the very pretense of the state, I understand that it's not going away anytime soon, because freedom is a state of mind. And most Canadians, most people in the world don't have that proper state of mind. So at the very least, to get them up to speed is heading them towards this kind of minarchism. Hopefully, once they get to the point where they recognize that this minarchism is much better and more conducive with freedom and liberty, well, then they'll realize that, well, okay, yeah, since we've shown with real world experience that freedom is better than enslavement, which should be a no-brainer for most people, but like I say, the power of indoctrination, right? Then more freedom. But that's the other thing that comes with freedom, and I think is not just the flip side of freedom, but part and parcel and a prerequisite and a requirement for freedom to exist. So individual freedom and personal responsibility, you can't have one without the other. If you want genuine freedom and liberty to flourish, then you have to have a population of society that accepts and adopts more personal responsibility as well. Capitalism, another Ayn Rand. The Unknown Ideal by Ayn Rand. Rand's collection of essays, which also includes pieces from Nathaniel Branden, Alan Greenspan, and Robert Hesson, represents an extended defense of laissez-faire capitalism, which Rand considers the only system compatible with man's rational nature. And I would agree. The book's first section addresses the fundamental theories supporting capitalism as well as its history. The second section applies these ideas to then contemporary political issues. Taken as a whole, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal, offers a thorough application of the ideas of objectivism to politics and the economy. The book closes with an appendix republishing two major essays, Man's Rights and the Nature of Government, which first appeared in The Virtue of Selfishness. And then last on this particular page is Moral Principles and the Political Obligations by A. John Simmons. Most political philosophy begins by assuming the existence of the state and the duty of its subjects to obey its rules. In Moral Principles and Political Obligations, Simmons asks us to take a step back and first address the question of what duty, if any, do we have to obey the state? Great question, right? He examines the most common arguments for state authority, including consent, gratitude, fair play, and natural duty, and finds them either uncompelling or unrealistic when applied to existing governments, which I would agree. His conclusion is philosophical anarchy, the idea that we don't have a moral duty to obey the government, but that there may be other non-moral reasons for doing so. Political authority is an important issue paid far too little attention by both libertarian and non-libertarian thinkers. So actually, that's another one that I'm not even sure if myself, I've probably heard a little bit about it. If I remember, there's some aspect of it does sound familiar, but I might want to even get a little bit up to speed and refresh my memory in regards to A. John Simmons and this book, Moral Principles and Political Obligations. So once again, great material, right? And there's more where that come from, folk. Let's see who else is in the stream here. Unfortunately, I might not disagree with Eureka, but the guys at the door with guns and badges are saying different. I'm not sure what you guys are talking about there. I missed out on that. Oh yeah, I'm missing out here. Hey, I'm an old washed up trucker too. Don't feel bad, Stan. Okay, where are we at here? Okay, what we got here? If I can understand family and NB at a drunken kitchen party, I can understand almost any X. Right? Well, NB or over on the rock too. Yes, bye. I hear you, Stan. I hear you. Eddie Murphy. That's funny. Yeah, Law, great book. Yeah, excellent book. Yeah, a different one. Same last name, different person, though. All right. Just trying to see if there's any questions here in the chat. Yeah, that would be good. But once again, I agree with this, but it's just like I say, we got to get the Canadian citizenry. Like how many Canadians are willing to do this though, right? I hear you. I hear you. That would be at least the next step, right? To properly define the limitation and role of government. But like I say, there's so many people that don't want to limit the role of government because they benefit themselves quite tremendously. Like big government's quite advantageous to quite a few people in this country. So are they going to be willing to get on board with it? Is it going to have to require 2/3 majority, which a lot of time does? And if it requires 2/3 majority or a super majority to bring it about, like a constitutional convention or things, like, are Canadians up to speed or on board with doing such a thing? You and I might be, but are the rest of Canadians? Highly doubtful. By the way, actually, let me just point out, let me mention to you folks too. Because actually, I'm going to start trying to get into a little bit more of the insider thing. I don't like to get into clicky. Like, I'm not a groupie kind of guy, like where I'm just constantly looking to join up with collectives or groups or stuff. But I do recognize that becoming part of a couple think tanks, people who actually, where you can actually get into having some connections with people that aren't just knowledgeable or fellow travelers in terms of promoting like liberty and all that stuff, but people that actually have resources, have money, have access to the ability to implement or bring some of these ideas to fruition. So I am going to be joining up with a couple of think tanks as of like in the near future. And one of them in Canada is one that, and fortunately, it's an invite only, but I have a sponsor. You have to be sponsored by someone else that's already a member of, it's called Civitas. And I was watching Candace Malcolm talk with Douglas Murray. He's an author out of the UK, and I believe he's part of Civitas, and so is a friend of mine that I got that lives in Ontario. He's a member of Civitas, and he's agreed to sponsor me. So I've still got to fill out the information. I've got to do a short little autobiography and some, show some credentials and stuff for myself, and then hopefully I'll be brought into the fold. But yeah, I definitely want to be part of some of these think tanks so I can actually, see and hear what's going on, what's being bantered about and discussed, and like I say, how we can bring some of these ideas out of our minds and put them to fruition into the real world. So I'm really excited about doing this thing where I'm going to be joining up to, and it's like I say, called Civitas, and it is by invite only. But like I say, fortunately, I have got the invite and I've got a sponsor as well. So like I say, I'm really excited to that. But anyways, back to the chat, and there's a couple other ones. I've actually even been contemplating reaching out to the Fraser Institute and seeing what I can't do, and possibly joining up with that organization as well, because it seems to be there seems to be some libertarians in the Fraser Institute, and people that care about freedom and liberty, and particularly economic freedom. So I'm going to be reaching out probably to Fraser Institute and see what kind of relationship I can't build with some folks inside there as well. Oh yeah, Spooner, Lysander, right? I know. Well, I would assume it. We still got 2 pages to go, Rika. But yeah, I know. Where's the Lysander, right? Social contract, my ass. I didn't sign shit, right? Which I didn't. That's the thing. To pretend that there is this thing. It's like, come on, did you ever? Or would you? First of all, who would ever sign a contract with anybody? Fucking never mind government or politician, but anybody where it's like, yeah, it's like a blank check. Yeah, here, I'll put my signature on it, but you can fill it out and change the rules up anytime you want. And yeah, my signature's on, so I guess I'll just have to abide by whatever you decide or determine later, right? After I've already signed it. And who the hell would do such a thing? Or if your grandparents signed a contract, oh yeah, I'll accept whatever they signed, and I'll just oblige myself to follow through with whatever they agreed upon. No, how about I'll agree for myself? How about I get to sign the contract myself, not just rely on the fact someone in my past or a family member did it 100 years ago or 200 years ago? Like, no. But yeah, I get what you're saying, Rika. Anyways, let me like I say, I'm just kind of looking through here. No, I'm going back. So let's get back, because I still haven't brought this page 3. Okay, so let's go on to page 3. Maybe we'll see some Lysander Spooner in this 3rd page, Rika. So this one, part 3 of this, page 3, Libertarian History, a reading list, a guide to books on the history of liberty and libertarianism. The history of libertarianism is more than a series of scholarly statements on philosophy, economics, and the social sciences. It is the history of courageous men and women struggling to bring freedom to the lives of those living without it. The works on this list give important context to the ideas found on the others. So this one is a first step. First book in this series is a first step. A History of Libertarianism by David. A History of Libertarianism is the first book in this series by David Bowes. This essay, reprinted from Libertarianism, a primer, covers the sweep of libertarian and pre-libertarian history from Leo Zhao. Wait a minute. Did we not see this? Is that not on page 1? Wait a second here. I thought I might have already seen that. No? Maybe it was page 2. Oh no, they just used. Oh, I see. No, it just sounded familiar. Okay, back. This essay, reprinted from Libertarianism primer, covers the sweep of libertarian and pre-libertarian history from Leo Zhao in the 6th century BC to the latest developments of the 21st century. Because it's available for free on libertarianism.org, so there you go. And if you click on this link, you'll see that'll take you right straight to that. So this one, at the very least, you already have a link with it contained within it to find it. So there, that's a save you at least one step, right? The essay also includes numerous links to more information about major thinkers and their works. For a general sense of the rich history of the movement for liberty, this is easily the best place to start. So sounds like a good place to start. Further reading, The Ideological Origins of the American Revolution by Bernard Bailyn. Bernard Bailyn's Pulitzer Prize-winning History of the Ideas that Influenced the American Revolution had a profound influence on our understanding of the Republic's origin by exposing its deeply libertarian foundations. Bailyn studied the major political pamphlets published between 1750 and 1776 and identified patterns of language, argument, and references to figures such as the radical Whigs and Cato the Younger. Because these were notions which men often saw little need to explain because they were so obvious, their understanding was assumed by the founders and thus not immediately obvious to modern readers. When the revolution is re-examined with Bailyn's findings in mind, there's no way to escape the conclusion that America was always steeped in libertarian principles, right? And a lot of this stuff, like I say, when people say, well, where's all these libertarian states or countries, or show me any place where a country has ever been libertarian. Okay, the U.S., in 1776 or whatever, the U.S., the founding fathers, they set it up to be. Now I get it, it's minarchist libertarian, but it's definitely libertarian in nature. And so when people say, where are these libertarian societies? Well, actually that one nation that went from a ragtag of 13 colonies to the most powerful and dominant nation economically and socially on the planet, and culturally, I would even add, right? Like think of how much export of the American culture has traveled around the whole world, right? And by the voluntary means, I'm not talking about the military industrial complex who tried to force or impose. Like, that's not libertarianism. But think of how many people around the world that would love to identify as having the same kind of freedoms and liberties that are entailed or enshrined within the Constitution of the U.S. U.S. is that shining beacon on the hill that is what most people on the entire globe, use as a guide, as a compass of what freedom and liberty even entails. So yeah, like I say, so when people say, "Oh, where's this liberty? Where's it?" Well, and see how much, how beneficial individual liberty was for the people of America, and how well it's worked out for most people. Now, some people not so much, right? But compare yourself and contrast yourself with anywhere else around the world. And for most of the 18th and 19th and 20th century, the place to be was America. And hopefully it will remain that way in the 21st century as well. Radicals for Capitalism, A Freewheeling History of the Modern American Libertarian Movement by Brian Doherty. The libertarian movement in America in the 20th century is the focus of this delightful history from Brian Doherty. Radicals for Capitalism is more the story of the men and women who fought for freedoms and limited government than it is an intellectual history of libertarian ideas. But it is an important story because it helps to place the contemporary debate about the place of libertarianism in American politics within the context of a major and long-lived social movement. The next one is The Decline of American Liberalism by Arthur A. Ecoach, Jr. I don't think I've read this one, folks. Ecoach traces the history of the liberal idea in the United States from the founding through World War II. He plays the high point of true liberalism in the years immediately following the American Revolution, before the federal government began its long march of even more centralized control over the country. And he shows how this shift has negatively impacted everything from global peace to the economy to individual autonomy. Against the Tide, an intellectual history of free trade by Douglas A. Irwin. Ever since Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations appeared in 1776, the case for free trade, both its economic benefits and its moral footing, seemed settled. Yet in the ensuing 2 centuries, many have attempted to restrict freedom of trade with claims about its deleterious effects. Irwin's Against the Tide traces the intellectual history of free trade from the early mercantilists through Schmitt and the neoclassical economists. and to the present. He shows how free trade has withstood theoretical assaults from protectionists of all stripes and how it remains the most effective means for bringing prosperity and peace to people throughout the world. The Triumph of Liberty, a 2,000-year history told through the lives of freedom's greatest champion by Jim Powell. If Radicals for Capitalism is the tale of the men and women who fought for liberty in the 20th century, Jim Powell's The Triumph of Liberty fills in the backstory. The book is an exhaustive collection of biographical articles on 65 major figures, from Marcus Tullius Cicero to Martin Luther King Jr., summarizing their lives, thought, and impact. While not all of them were strictly libertarian, every one of the people Powell covers was instrumental in making the world a freer, making the world freer. For a grand sweep of liberty's history through the lives of those who struggle in its name, there's no better source than The Triumph of Liberty. So definitely another excellent source of material to get you up to speed. How the West grew rich. The economic transformation of the industrial world by Nathan Rosenberg and L.E. Birdsell Jr. The central question that How the West Grew Rich addresses is precisely what its title implies. For thousands of years, humans believed... Sorry, folks, I'm going to have to start wearing glasses when I'm doing this stuff. For thousands of years, human beings lived in unrelieved misery, hunger, famine, illiteracy, superstition, ignorance, pestilence, and worse have been their lot. How did things change? How did a relatively few people, those in what we call the West, escape from grinding poverty into sustained economic growth and material well-being when most other societies remain trapped in an endless cycle of birth, hardship, and death? Well, that's an easy answer. Liberty. Individual liberty, right? Both social and economic. That is how. This fascinating book tells that story. The explanations that many historians have offered, claiming that it was all due to science or luck or natural resources or exploitations or imperialism, are refuted at the outset. In the book's opening chapter, Rosenberg and Birdsall are then free to provide an explanation that makes much more sense. Sorry, folks, I might have to do this just because I know I'm kind of messing up here and I might want to do a little better job, although I don't like to get used to wearing these stupid damn things, to be honest with you here, but actually it's a little bit dirty even. Nerd alert! Sorry, folks, but yeah, just because I'm doing quite a bit of reading in this one here. The State by Franz Oppenheimer. Much political philosophy begins with a social contract theory of the state. Mankind originally existed in a state of nature, and the state only arose when people came together and agreed to give up some of their liberties in exchange for protection of others. Oppenheimer rejects this rosy picture and replaces it with his much more realistic conquest theory, which finds the genesis of states in roving bands of marauders who eventually settled down and turned to taxation when they realized it was easier than perpetual raiding, right? Yeah. The state also features Oppenheimer's influential distinction between the two means by which man can set about fulfilling his needs. I propose in the following discussion to call one's own labor and the equivalent exchange of one's own labor for the labor of others the economic means for the satisfaction of needs, while the unrequited approach of the labor of others will be called the political means. Yeah, so yeah, these things are dirty. I'll have to try that another time when they're cleaner. But anyways, maybe for now I'll just bump up the size one more, right? All right. Sorry, folks. But yeah, that would definitely be an excellent source of material as well. Bourgeois Dignity, Why Economics Can't Explain the Modern World by Deidre McCluskey. McCluskey. Nice. I like that last name. I remember hearing about this actually, yeah. In Bourgeois Dignity, McCluskey offers a different story of economic growth from the common one of capitalism and markets. The West grew rich, she argues, not simply because it embraced trade, but because its cultural ideas shifted, specifically in granting a sense of dignity to the bourgeoisie. It is that dignity and the rhetoric around it that sparked the Industrial Revolution and in turn led to the modern world. Bourgeois dignity traces this influence of these changing ideas and uses them to explain not just the rise of the West, but also the recent monumental growth of India and China. The book is the second in a 4-volume series, The Bourgeois Era. So once again, an excellent source of material. Let me get back into the stream here with you folks. I'm going to take this off for now while I'm back in the stream. No, I'll get back to it here in a minute. So we got one more page to go. We're on fire. We're on fire. Or Jefferson. Yeah. Another Jefferson. Well, like I say, guarantee there's more. And I'll do this in a series where I find more resource and material and bring them to light as well. So, because there's like I say, there's a lot. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of resource out there to get people up to speed, which is why I always say, and I love that meme that I've shared around so many times before. In the age of information, ignorance truly is a choice, folks. Because there's so much resource and material out there to not be knowledgeable regarding liberty. Yeah, you're actively choosing not to, right? Because it's there at your fingertips, and a lot of it freely available. Oh, sorry. Some of the native bands that can see the BS for what it is are pushing back, and it's great to see that. Yes, it would be nice we could kick the feds out too. Actually, I really would love to, and I do converse and talk with people from the First Nation communities that are very much all about standing in defense of liberty. And think about it. They're against imperialism. They're against the state. Yes, we should be having some more common relationships and have seeing some common causes with people that represent the First Nation community, especially the ones that truly are against the state or federal or imperialism or imposing, big government ideas onto the masses or minorities or all that stuff. So yeah, definitely. I agree. We should be reached out. And I definitely talk to, like I say, a substantial number of people from the First Nation communities. And I've always found myself to have a good cordial relationship with a lot of these people, especially once we get past the old pretenses where, they've been taught to think of be the white man as, I just want to impose my imperialism, my white supremacy or whatever privilege on them. Once we work through that, or the fact, or like the old stereotypes of those First Nation people are just a bunch of drunken welfare kids that just want to live off my taxes. The way that's what big government, the media, and the thought leaders, that's what they do. They try to pit us against each other all the time because they recognize that if we actually showed solidarity with each other as the people, right, against the ruling class, against the authoritarians, yeah, and if we could put our petty differences aside, be like, yeah, you guys do your thing, I'll do my thing, you do your thing, and we'll be all better off as a consequence, as a result of getting rid of this big gigantic thing called the state that keeps trying to impose its will on the rest of us, or plundering our economic resources, or dictating what we're allowed to do in our personal or social lives. We need to come together, folks. We need to come together. Like I say, not just with the First Nation people, but the disenfranchised leftists, even those anarchists, or even some people that claim to be anarcho-communists, right? If they include at least the anarcho part of that in their name, even though communism, I'm definitely against it. Well, if they're already rejecting the state or the pretense of the state or having a ruling class, well, that's already at least something we have in common, and we should be able to build and expand upon that if we talk with each other with clear and concise language and are honest and forthright in what our goals truly are, right? But yeah, good point, Mr. G. Rich. Hey, I hear you, Stan. Sometimes my brain takes a little bit of it. I think a little bit even today. It's kind of trying to go to sleep there for a little bit. It's just give it a head shake, wake it up a little bit, right? Yeah, there's no such thing as legitimate government. I agree. And it can be provably so, right, Rika? But my step. Unfortunately, I might not disagree with you, Rika, but the guys at the doors. Yeah, exactly. That's where that came from. Yeah. Now it's all coming together. Now I get why that reply, what that was for. Exactly, right? Because freedom and liberty, it truly is a state of mind. We're in the right state of mind, but are the rest of our peers, are the rest of the Canadian people, are those enforcers? Not necessarily. So we got to be careful of that, right? Right on. You folks are wise and ahead of the game. Like I say, it's like I don't even really have to say much. But without government, satanic pedophiles might try and exactly. Yeah, I know, right? Well, they'll use government to do that. Okay, where are we at here? Where'd everybody go? How far back do I got to go here? Me jumping. I have to go up this back. All right. I see Thaco XP. Morning. I ran 2 blocks to fire last night before fire department arrived. Everyone's okay. No one in garbage. No one in garbage. Oh, there was a dumpster fire. Right on. Shoot, that's good stuff. If I ran 2 blocks, I'd be on fire. I got to get back. Yeah. That's funny. Okay. I might need the virus, but I definitely need the mercy beam. Oh, you guys are funny. You guys and gals are funny. My Constitution is nothing if you don't have people willing to back it up, just like any authority. Well, that's what I mean. It's just stuff written on paper, right? It's just defined rules. But yes, you have to have people that are willing to uphold and defend those rules and be clear and consistent and universalize how those rules are imposed on the people. Because without it, then you're just that's the thing. It at the end of the day, nothing, right? None of these things mean anything without people. Like I say, it's all a state of mind, which is why at the end of the day, it's education. Education. Every human being, every generation needs to take that personal responsibility to educate themselves, anyone else in their community, their children, their grandchildren. We should all, especially if we're knowledgeable on the topic, we should all take that responsibility and pass on this knowledge. That is what's required. And if the state is not going to do it, which obviously, I mean, think about it, the education system is controlled by the state. It's not in the people that run these education systems to teach people that the state is built on mysticism and as abstract impossibilities, right? So they're going to fail you at every junction, which is why today we have to take that responsibility on ourselves, which is why I've been doing it for a decade plus, is trying my best to educate and inform people, because I recognize, just like everyone else in the stream, my freedoms completely require and are dependent on the rest of the people in my community, in my province, and ultimately in my country, believing in my inherent rights to be free. If they don't believe in them, then my freedoms are always going to be restricted and curtailed or contained or restrained in some way, right? Say it's all up here, folks. Well, you folks know that, but there's a whole lot of other Canadians out there that we got to get up to speed and fast. I'll add. It is for sure. It is for sure, especially when you're talking about government, right? Hey, Phil Ray, come on, Mud Buggy. Oh, not sure. Anyways, welcome to the chat, Phil Ray. Appreciate you for showing up there. And if you haven't already, hit that like button. I would appreciate your support. You give yourself authority when you act within the Constitution. Yeah, well, I mean, any authority, like anything that's considered an authority should be the concept or the ideas, not the individuals per se, right? But if the principle in regards to the authority is that, not to steal, if that's the principle, then anyone that infringes or goes against that doesn't have an actual authority to do so. Now, I do have an authority to defend it, because that's what negative rights are all about, is to defend your property. But yeah, you do kind of give yourself authority when you act within the Constitution, because you're following the rules universally, right? Oh, we know that. I definitely know that, Rika. Rika is far from a status, that's for sure. Yeah, well, that's the ones that are behind the scene, that are the unelected, right? The bureaucrat, the deep state that's been bantered about by Trump and his ilk, right? Is the deep state, which it's true. It's true. There's so many people that are part and parcel of government that you never have any say in whether they come to exist in these positions. You might get to choose or vote for the MPs in your local riding, but you don't get to pick who these people are in these positions, where they have just as much so-called authority or control over aspects of your social and economic lives, and you have no way to hold them to account, right? You can't vote these people out, which is why it's so difficult to unwind the state once you've allowed it to creep up and grow to the point where it is today. You can keep lobbing up, and in democracy, as we see, you can keep lobbing off, the guy at the top, the figurehead at the top, time and time again, which is what happens every election cycle, right? Got to get rid of that guy. He's terrible, right? Or that lady or whoever the hell it is in control. But what happens? You still get the same shit because the deep state and the bureaucracy is still there. And it's still got all that power and influence and pretense of authority to do what they want, without you and I, as the citizenry, having an easy or accessible way to hold these people to account. And believe me, that's done by design. Yeah, stop funding. At the very least, that's something that we can definitely help out tremendously. But because they have the power of the purse and the printing press with the central bank system, is they'll just make up whatever you don't. But I still, like I say, I still withdraw my economic support as best I can. But the problem with today, especially after the gold, severing the gold standard in 1971, well, basically they can just, you can withdraw your support. They'll just print over the difference, right? They'll just make up for it by turning on the printing press. So it's getting really, really hard. That's the thing. It used to be that all you really had to do at the end of the day, which was the power of your person's power, your ability to vote with your dollars, did have a tremendous effect on putting politicians or these central planners in their place. Today, that's much more difficult to do because they have so much control over the power of the printing press that, like I say, you can withdraw your economic support, but they'll just make up for it on the back end by printing more money. So it's getting more difficult for sure. Okay. Yeah, we have a state broadcaster. Not so, I know. Well, yeah, I'm not a fan of the CBC. CBC is definitely one of the major contributors to, the rise of statism in this country, for sure. CBC promotes statism all day, every day. That's what they do. Oh, saw you posted about the man getting a fine for eating a donut in his car. This is how some people get if you give them even just a bit of power, enough to put a person in a very bad. I tell you, that was that was disgusting. I shared that was that Rebel News video earlier today. Yeah, I shared it on my social media pages. Yeah, all the guy was doing, and he was by himself alone. But you heard like what it was, just like what I said, and it's contempt of cop. That's what the only crime that man was guilty of was the fact that he asked the cop's last name. The cop was, trying to bully, intimidate him already, but the guy was very calm, cool, and collected, and he didn't speak back in, in such a negative way that, would elicit that ramped up response that you get from these petty fucking tyrants or these thugs. You know how they do, oh, you better respect my authority. This guy was very polite and cordial with the cop, but all he did, when he was getting ready to leave and was, seemed like he wasn't going to get the ticket, all he did was ask the officer's name, and not in a way like, I demand your name or give me your name, asshole. All he did was say, what's your name, officer? More like in like I say, in a calm, respectable manner. And that's all it took. Once that cop's like, oh, you're going to, oh, why you ask my name? Oh, you're going to call on my superiors and tell them what it was. Is like, how dare you challenge my authority? Now I'm writing you the ticket. Doesn't matter what you say now, I'm writing ticket. And then what did he say? Oh, if you don't hurry up and get it after you wrote the ticket, if you don't hurry up and get the hell out of here, I'll give you another one. The next one's going to be $1,000. And then after that, it could be $10,000. So what's the cop's sole intention at that time? To escalate tensions all the way up to the point, like I say, depending on this gentleman. Now, fortunately, this gentleman had the wherewithal to, first of all, record the audio. So at least we heard what was taking place, right? But he also was wise enough and thankfully calm enough and hopefully having a good enough day, apparently, that he kept his composure and remained calm while this was happening. Because if he had tried even the slightest bit, where the cop was escalating, well, when someone's escalating threats against you, that usually elicits a response of escalation in terms of pushing back. Now, if this person had to escalate and say, oh, you're threatening me, well, now I demand you to know who your sergeant is or whatever, and once you start raising those tensions, well, you can see that this officer was all about raising the tensions or escalating. And if it had continued on, it could have gone up to the point where maybe someone was, harmed, injured, or ultimately might have been killed. And for what? Because the guy was sitting in his car in a Tim Hortons parking lot by himself, eating his donut or whatever he was, so that he wasn't driving and eating at the same time. So trying to be a law-abiding citizen, wasn't putting anyone in any harm. Matter of fact, until he had to roll his window down to answer this fucking dipshit petty thug or petty tyrant, he was completely following every rule that you can imagine in terms of, self-isolation or not placing anyone else in a situation where they might contact the COVID or, I said the word, anyways, whatever. I mean, the guy was doing everything that he could possibly do. And for what? And what was he given as a consequence for doing what he should be do? Bullied by this freaking petty tyrant and ultimately given the ticket. But yeah, Rebel Media, I'm so proud of them. And yeah, that should be, if you have a half decent judge that will listen to these cases, it'll be thrown out quickly. And if you're the judge that's dealing with these cases, not only should you throw them out, that you should put these cops or make it so that these people need to get some fucking re-education in terms of what it is to be there to serve the public. Because they're not serving the public when they're doing that shit, right? We're not supposed to have a band of fucking petty tyrants and thugs or shakedown artists out there, right? These are people supposed to be protecting the public. And this fucking guy was doing no such thing. He was actually causing harm to the public. Yeah, don't even get me started on these. Oh, I can't stand these little mindless order followers. They make me sick. They shouldn't be, but as you'll notice, that's what dominates these days. And the ones that are measly mouth or meager or whatever, they just, well, like I say, even if they're not as forceful or as much of a bully as this guy was, because you heard him, he even called the guy an asshole. Oh, you're the first asshole, right? Some of the police might not be maybe that blatant in terms of their bullying tactics, but once again, it depends on what time of the day you caught them, right? I mean, these positions today, think about their jobs and what their duty description entails. That tells you alone the kind of people that's going to win these positions anymore. It's no longer just a matter of keeping the peace, and it hasn't been for decades. So anyone that goes into the position of being a police officer today should at least recognize what your actual job entails. And if you recognize what the job entails and you still choose to take it, then you're automatically an asshole or a bully or a petty thug or a tyrant as far as I'm concerned. Because, if the job description entails, being a thug or a petty tyrant or a shakedown artist towards people that are acting peacefully, yeah, that makes you the bully. That makes you the tyrant. That makes you the authoritarian. Just because you can get a paycheck for being authoritarian doesn't mean it automatically turns into a proper occupation or something that you should be doing. I felt the wrath of the local cop after telling him someone head should have rolled for sending out those 4 unarmed cops at Martha. I don't know. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about there. Just say up yours, but obviously something was something that happened. But yeah, not a fan of those guys. Not a fan of them at all. Anyways, let's see. We're at 148. So I'm going to tie this up here shortly, folks, like I say. So let's get to this last page, and I'll try to hammer through them fairly quickly so I can get the stream tied up in the 2 hour, by the 2 hour mark. Okay, last page. Critics of Liberty, a reading list. A guide to the books and essays contain the most powerful arguments against libertarianism. So this is the thing, folks. This is what you need to as well. To be able to steelman your libertarian arguments, well, you have to get like some of the best pushback from some really wise and great minds of people who do challenge libertarianism. Because like I say, that's what's going to sharpen your own knowledge. And this is a great way to do so. So this is Critics of Liberty, a reading list, a guide to the books and essays containing the most powerful arguments against libertarianism, right? That's how you know that you're fairly confident, or at least, no, really confident in your principled stance or your positions or your philosophy, when you're willing to even give your opponents, right? You're even willing to promote their arguments just so that you can solidify and strengthen your own arguments. It's not enough to be familiar with the major libertarian thinkers and their arguments. A well-informed advocate of liberty must also understand and appreciate the positions of those thinkers who disagree with libertarianism. The works on this list offer a comprehensive introduction to many of the most intriguing, enduring, and forceful attacks on libertarianism, as well as positive arguments for visions incompatible with the philosophy of liberty. I love hearing these arguments, especially, at least if they're genuine critiques of libertarianism. Not a big fan of the straw man bullshit. And usually, once people's like, you're not dealing with anything that I stand for or libertarian values and principle. So you're arguing against something that I have no idea we're talking about. But the ones that actually do try to push back against genuine libertarian philosophy and principles, this, like I say, this is what you're going to get out of this. A First Step, Contemporary Political Philosophy, an introduction by Will Kymlicka or Kymlicka. Kymlicka's book tops the list for two reasons. First, it contains an excellent and highly critical chapter on libertarianism, one that clearly presents several strong critiques of libertarian philosophy, particularly that of Robert Nozick. Second, it offers equally excellent overviews of the other major schools of modern political thought: utilitarianism, liberal egalitarianism, Marxism, communitarianism, citizenship theory, multiculturalism, and feminism. Each of these schools has something to offer the curious libertarian seeking a better and more nuanced view of political philosophy. A Theory of Justice by John Rawls. I've heard this one. Rawls' monumental A Theory of Justice is very likely the most important work of political philosophy in the last 100 years. It's often said that all political philosophy published after A Theory of Justice came out in 1971 is, in one way or another, a reaction to it. The theory Rawls lays out isn't a direct attack on libertarianism. Some have even argued it can be interpreted as a powerful foundation for a libertarian society, but it forms much of the background for all contemporary debate, especially within the liberal tradition, making it crucial that any student of libertarian thought understand Rawls. Liberalism and the Limits of Justice by Michael J. Sandel. Sandel represents one version of the rich school of political philosophy known as communitarianism. At its core, communitarianism is a reaction against philosophical liberalisms focused on the individual. Communitarians believe that individuals can only be understood as members of a community, and that the community should be, if not the, focus of political theory. Liberalism and the Limits of Justice takes this so far as to claim that if the community is given enough weight within a society, there will be no need for considerations of justice. Justice is only needed, Sandel thinks, as a remedy when people are not sufficiently concerned with love and shared goals. So collectivism versus individualism, and definitely check that out, because like I say, you want to hear some really important critiques regarding libertarianism by people who do promote, collectivism or sacrificing the individual to the collective, because that's something that you're definitely going to want. You want to hear the kind of arguments and premises that they present, so you know how to argue back against them. Self-Ownership, Freedom, and Equality by G.A. Cohen. This is Cohen's classic response to Robert Nozick's Anarchy, State, and Utopia. Cohen, a Marxist, agrees with Nozick and other libertarians that self-ownership and private property lead to libertarianism. His response is not to abandon Marxism, but to abandon self-ownership and private property. He argues that neither, at least in the strong form Nozick endorses, can be defended. In the era of private ownership of land, for example, Cohen argues that land does not begin in the unowned state John Locke and Robert Nozick assumed, but rather that all land is at all times owned by all people. Many outside of libertarianism have found Cohen's critiques perfectly fatal to Nozick's project. Libertarians, of course, would no longer be libertarians if they agreed. Exactly. So definitely check it out. See what kind of arguments. And like I say, that'll strengthen and give you more rigidity in your own pushback, because it'll make you really think about what you need to put forth as your premise or your principle, to knock down these kind of arguments that are being presented. The Concept of the Political by Carl Schmitt. Schmitt's The Concept of the Political comes from a perspective so far removed from a libertarian's view of politics, and even what it means to be human, that it can be a profoundly difficult book to wrestle with. For Schmitt, politics defines humanity. This means that the liberal ideal of reducing or doing away with the sphere of politics means reducing or doing away with humanity itself. Even more troubling, politics only exists because of friend-enemy distinctions. A people generally without enemies is a people without politics, and not so really a people at all. The liberal project of toleration and scaling back the power of the state is thus doomed, Schmitt thinks, because it is impossible to abandon our nature, meaning we cannot abandon politics or enemies. Perhaps even more distressing than the details of Schmitt's argument is the deep and continuing influence it has had on much modern political thought, particularly that of the neoconservatives and the more radical collectivist strains of the left. Anti-Libertarianism, Markets, Philosophy, and Myth by Alan Hayworth. If libertarianism is the political philosophy that holds freedom of central importance, then libertarians, Alan Haworth argues, are actually anti-libertarian. In this short book, he sets out to expose the shaky foundations of what Haworth sees as the three principles of libertarianism: the belief in moral good of free markets, the moral evil of the state, and the supreme importance of freedom. Anti-libertarianism is written clearly and passionately, and many of Hayworth's arguments will force libertarians to more closely examine their own beliefs and the reasons they have for holding them. For that reason alone, this book is valuable, even if it ultimately fails in wiping libertarianism from the field. What's Wrong with Negative Liberty by Charles Taylor. So like I say, when we discuss liberty, there's the positive and negative. And negative is you can't use force, violence, coercion, or theft. Like that's the negative aspect. Whereas when people try to correlate liberty or freedom with is you have a right to things, right? So there's a right to be free from force, coercion, theft, and violence. But when people try to use the positive correlation for liberty is you have a right to like healthcare or education. Well, it sounds good in theory, or as a first run through the old thought process. But once you've thought about it even slightly or scratched above the surface, you think, well, wait a minute, how could I have a right to? Like, if I have a right to healthcare, does that mean that doctors have to be beholden to providing to me? So are they forced? Should they be forced or compelled to provide it against their will? Because if that's the case, then that kind of positive freedom for me is actually a destruction and a negative aspect in regards to liberty for the person I'm imposing it. So once again, for actual freedom to flourish, it can only function in a negative sense where we can actually universalize it. The minute you can't universalize the pretense or your rights or your freedoms or your liberties, well, that's how you know that it's not an actual negative aspect or proper freedom or liberty. A focus of many critiques of libertarianism, especially from the left, is the idea that libertarians advocate a hyper-individualist dog-eat-dog morality, which is some do, but it's not necessarily the case. Charles Taylor, one of our most important contemporary philosophers, develops this argument by way of attacking negative liberty. Negative liberty is the idea held by most libertarians that freedom can only be conceived as freedom from something external to the individual. The state's only legitimate role is to protect us from violations of our negative liberty by others. Taylor argues that this isn't good enough. Freedom cannot just be the absence of external obstacles, for there may also be internal ones. Nor may the internal obstacles be confined to those the subject identifies as such, for he may be profoundly mistaken about his purposes and what he wants to repudiate. And if so, he is less capable of freedom in the meaningful sense of the word. Even if libertarians are inclined to accept some of Taylor's argument, they draw a bright line between voluntary, non-coercive efforts to help others achieve freedom in this meaningful sense, and state-based coercion efforts to force us to be free. The imperfect exercise of freedom, in Taylor's sense of the term, may be the price we pay to avoid tyranny. Libertarians, the Chirping Sectaries by Russell Kirk. 20th century conservative icon Russell Kirk really didn't like libertarians, and he sets out his reasons why in this essay. The piece is valuable not so much as the compelling critique, but as an exemplar of the way libertarianism is often seen by non-libertarians, especially conservatives. So, like I say, for those right-wingers among you that have a hate on for libertarians just as much as those far leftists do, this sounds like an article, or a book that would be good for you to be able to push back against some of those conservative critiques against libertarianism. For example, Kirk accused libertarians of being in favor. Okay, where are we at here? For example, Kirk accuses libertarians of being in favor of exalting an absolute and indefinable liberty at the expense of order. Libertarians, he argues, assume human nature is overwhelmingly good and the state is an oppressor. But the conservative, he writes, finds that the state is ordained of God, broadly speaking. Kirk sees libertarians as irresponsible, childish hedonists who lack the realist and tragic view of humanity of the conservative. Most of Kirk's volleys miss the truth of libertarianism entirely, but his characterization remains one that libertarians must work to expose the inaccuracy of. Yes, it's pretty wild, right? But anyways, yeah, definitely interesting reading. And like I say, what these will do, especially these anti-libertarian books by people who, tried their best to push back against libertarianism. Like I say, this is a way for you to steel man your argument, because you don't want to hear just people that say, but what about my roads? Like the lowly, the easy answers, like those are easy. But there are some people that, put a lot of effort and use a lot of intellectual language to try to push back against libertarianism. And like I say, some of them can do a half-decent job at doing so, which is why it's important for you to get yourself up to speed, see what kind of arguments they're putting forth and presenting, and then figure out the best way to argue or push back against it so that you can clarify that you actually understand their position. You're not going to straw man them. You're actually going to point out the inaccuracies of their stances and give them more clarity in what libertarian values and principles actually entail. Okay, and this is the last one, folks. Making Men Moral, Civil Liberties and Public Morality by Robert George. The libertarian view of the state's proper role is that it should protect rights but not legislate or enforce morality, particularly when it comes to victimless crimes. Robert George disagrees. Morals legislation, George argues, is crucial in establishing the moral environment necessary for citizens to lead good and virtuous lives. He spends much of the book critiquing several liberal philosophers in the non-perfectionist tradition, a strain of thought that, like libertarianism, holds that it isn't proper for the state to force a particular conception of morality beyond the morality of respecting rights upon its citizens. From George's perspective, it is very much the state's role to morally perfect its subjects. This view ought to deeply concern libertarians and isn't one that they can safely ignore. Exactly. Well, that actually is a fairly easy one to critique, because the state, to pretend that the state is the arbiter of morality or the authority on morality when it literally is a contradiction, like that's a fairly easy one to do, because, hey, taxation is theft, and government, the people in government are given this pretense of legitimacy to do things that none of us are allowed to do. So we all have to be beholden to a certain level of morality or ethics that have to be universal. And if we step outside the bounds, then we have broken a law or a moral or ethic rule, right? But yet government, by the very foundation of what it is to be a politician in government in that position, well, you've already broken the very core principles of not using preemptive force or violence or theft as your means to an end. So yeah, for people that like I say, that's the typical of the status, which is like, do as I say, not as I do, which is usually a fairly easy argument to counter, because like I say, they're walking, talking contradiction. But anyway, folks, I hope that a lot of you that are watching this stream will read a lot of these resource materials, and don't just read them for yourself, share them around with other people in your family, in your community, other people that are curious about this stuff, that have even just started to barely scratch the surface of learning what a libertarian is, or what is libertarian philosophy. What does all this mean, right? Is get them started down these roads. Like I say, put them on page 1, the Introduction to Liberty, and share this. Hey, share this to as a link, maybe in an email, maybe on one of their social media pages, and say, hey, check this out sometime, right? And maybe even let them know there's even a section in there for people who are against libertarians, so that they can try to find a way, if they're clear and concise in their own stances, right? Because like I say, this, if you have the right ideas, if your philosophy is built on truth, objective reality, logic, and all those things, then yeah, let people try to, like, to me, as libertarians, like, give me what you got, bring whatever you got, bring your best, bring your brightest, bring everything that you can to the table. Because if you can destroy the philosophy, then I'll realize that I've been incorrect in my thinking, and I'll improve and adopt the new thinking that places me in a much more knowledgeable level and more in the pursuit of truth. Because at the end of the day, that's what philosophy is all about. It's the pursuit of knowledge and the pursuit of truth. And at the end of the day, I want to make sure I possess the right kind of knowledge that's built and entrenched on truth, or at least things that can be proven to be objectively true. So let me get back to the chat here, see what you folks are saying. What do you think? Just put down in the chat. What do you think? This seems like a pretty good set of resource material for people who definitely want to learn about liberty, I would suggest. What do you think, folks? Oh, you guys are still talking about the cops on there, I see. Right on. Right on. We'll have to do a stream one day just talking about the enforcers, right? Yeah. Who knew the RCMP or Tim Hortons? Exactly, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I even had someone today, actually, this morning, when I was sharing that on Twitter, I had someone say, well, yeah, but Tim Hortons is a private business. So that's the thing with people, that when they turn towards libertarianism, is like, man, you really do. If you just learn about libertarianism and you leave morality and ethics out of it, and you just try the utility aspect of limiting the role of the state, like, there's so many areas of people's mind where I see why people confuse what it is to be a libertarian, because some people just like to claim themselves to be libertarians because they are those people that don't give a shit about anything. They never reach out a hand or offer a hand to help anybody. I mean, if someone was drowning and they were standing there with a lifeline, they'd be like, that's not my job. I'm not required. The state doesn't demand, or it would be illegitimate for anybody to demand that I help them, so I'm not going to help them. It's like, well, you shouldn't be required or be demanded or forced to help people when you were in a position to help them. That, just to be a fucking half decent human being, probably helps, right? So that's the thing, is like, having morality and ethics is kind of part and parcel with libertarianism, but it isn't all. Some people just use the libertarianism. I just want to be free from everything, including responsibility. But that means they don't understand what libertarianism is. That means people that are misrepresenting libertarianism. But when you're talking about like private property and private businesses should be able to, yeah, private businesses as a libertarian, when you're talking about like the rule-based in terms of governance, right? But we're talking about governance here. Yeah, you know, like, should government be able to control and dictate how private businesses function? No, of course not. But should I, as a Canadian, like, if Tim Hortons, even though it's a private business, and I'm a libertarian, if Tim Hortons is using the police, the state, you know, to fuck with their customers, because, well, that's the thing. Is it Tim Hortons that's choosing to do that? Or is it because the state is imposing this stuff on the business, and the business, to follow through with those rules consistently without anyone being able to sue them or customers being able to push back against them? See, this is what I mean. The state started this shit. The state started this shit, and it's the state that's the one that's put all these rules in place. So these corporations, you know, are basically, I guess, just trying to follow orders themselves, but at the same time, to defend Tim Hortons in any way for whatever stance they would take, and having a customer that was there to buy a coffee and supporting this establishment, and then the cops are there tormenting them. I say, I just can't fall for that shit. I don't fall for it. I wouldn't defend Tim Hortons for doing that shit, whether it's a private company or publicly run company. If you're being a fucking asshole, or you're treating your customers like shit, or sicking the cops on them after they've already got in there and paid for their, 'cause that's the thing. Yeah, Tim Hortons got their money for their donuts and the coffee, and then after that, what? They were in support of having the customer thrown the hell out, right? And for what? I didn't see. But to me, that story on Rebel didn't even cover the Tim Hortons side of things, right? Other than the fact it happened in a Tim Hortons. But that was a response that I got. It's like, who gives a shit what This was about a cop bullying a guy in his car for sitting there eating his fucking donut. Who gives a fuck about it? That's your first stance that you want to go with? Oh, it's a private company. They should be able to do what they want. I mean, that can be your stance, but that just tells me that you're the kind of person that's like, I probably wouldn't want to be friends with you. I might want to agree with you in terms of, yeah, let's like in some things in terms of let's reduce the size and scope of the state, but would I want you as a neighbor? Probably fucking not. Anyways, so yeah, he didn't really cover. Okay, so yeah, we're good. We're good. Let me tie this up here. Yeah, 209. So it's good. Anyways, thanks for all you folks for being patient once again with this, but I definitely wanted to get this resource material out there because I know there were some people that were asking about it, and I thought it was really important for to get people up to speed and learn about liberty, to give them some good, excellent sources for this kind of material. And I think, like I say, contained within those 4 pages, yeah, that's lots enough to get you up to speed and keep you busy for quite a while. And then, like I say, in the interim, I'll be trying to figure out and digging into more resource material, and I'll do a subsequent stream at some point in time offering even more. What's going on, Droopy82? Ain't no one more intolerant than the left these days, right? I know these are the people that are supposed to be so tolerant, yet they are nothing of the sort. And the Canadian right in Parliament is just as bad. Yeah. The Libcon duopoly is real, and neither of them have our best interests in mind. That's for sure. Libertarians say, stay the hell out of my bedroom. Yeah, and my wallet, right? And my wallet too, I would say. Yeah, exactly. Good question. Why doesn't Tim Hortons hire their own security? Well, I suppose they can offload that cost onto you and I as a taxpayer, right? Well, actually, Tim Hortons, I guess, pays taxes too. Although, is Tim Hortons another one of those because they're owned by, what is it, a Brazilian company at this point in time? How much taxes do they pay? Who would know, really, to be honest with you? You could check into that stuff. Yeah, victimless crimes should not be I agree. Just say up yours. Anyways, folks, like I say, thanks for everyone that showed up the stream. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll get lots of information and properly educated in regards to libertarian out of these kind of resource material. And like I say, I'll be looking forward to doing this another time at some point in time in the future. Everyone have yourself a great day, and we'll see you in the next stream. Oh, and watch for, like I say, watch for my video coming out, tomorrow at 10 a.m. regarding these lockdown fanatics that just seem to be so exuberant and excited about locking down large segments of the society, and people watching them basically being under house arrest. And they're real excited about it. Why? Because a lot of these people are government workers that are just enjoying getting their government paycheck without actually having to do anything, which I guess is not a whole lot different other than they don't have to commute into work, because it's not like they do a whole lot, whether they're in the position of employment or sitting at home or whatever, they're getting topped up. But anyways, like I say, check that out. And happened. Okay, I'm back. But anyways, yeah, my that I uploaded as a standalone video regarding the YouTube suppression. It's only got a few hundred views, folks. If you could share that around and get not just me get more views, but so the other people are privy to this knowledge and understand that, yes, they're definitely actively suppressing content creators like myself. And like I say, because the standalone video, it's only about 10 minutes long, a lot more people would be more than willing to watch that than, a 2 or 3 hour stream such as this. So help me out if you can by sharing that video as well. And like I say, I'll see y'all in the next stream. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.